on the other side.
No, because that camera's all.
Take your picture. Marcel, we're not going to the Golden Hours. This is the wrong day. It's the right year. It's nice to see you all. Dr. Varga.
Yeah, hi. Nice to see you. Happy birthday, my friend.
Silly. Hello, darling. Oh, I'm sorry, man.
Yeah.
Take it easy, you'll break your.
What is it? What is it?
I don't know.
Roger Ray.
Chicago Tribune.
6-year-old.
Oh, this is your life. Da 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 da. Uh-oh. Right here, please. Hold on. It says, please refresh your drink and gather your friends in the living room now. The producers.
Let's put it on. Here we go.
Is there anything else in the box?
No.
Okay.
Thank God it's only one carousel.
So let's talk about a little bit about your childhood. You said that your mother was generous and your father was strict.
Yeah.
Right? Do you think that growing up that way influenced your parenting style? Were you more generous? Were you more strict? Were you a
I
combination?
was about as strict as my father was.
You were?
Yeah.
Really?
For the kids.
Because tell us the story of your dad being really strict.
Neil lived on my way to school, and one day his mother said, you want the bike? Because Neil just got a new one. I said, I'd love the bike. She said, the only problem is it's got a flat tire, front tire. So I walked the bike home, and I put it in the cellar.
And at that time, how much would it cost?
$2.
$2 to get a new tire.
And at the hardware store. And I walked it home, and I walked the stairs up to the kitchen, and I told my mother I had a new bike. And she said, oh my. She was waiting for my father to get home. My father got home, and I said, I have a new bike. And he said, let me see it. And I had a front tire. I said, all you gotta do is pay, no, it was 50 cents.
Oh, 50 cents.
Not $2. And he said, I'm not gonna pay it. I said, oh, I told you you couldn't have a bike. So I went downstairs the next morning and ripped the tire off the bike and rode it on a bare rim for a year. Finally, a year later, at Christmas time, he said, I want you to come downstairs with me in the basement. And he had a brand new bike for me. And the damn thing had balloon tires, and it was tough to pump.
So it was easier on the rim, is what you're
easier
saying.
on the rim, that's right.
That's pretty funny. Was your dad just as strict with Richard as he was with
No.
you?
Well, Richard was 7 years younger.
Right.
And my father, I used to, when I went to college, I had to send home a note every week with everything I spent.
a budget.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah, well,
Oh, that sounds like a good idea.
5 cents for a package of gum and so on and so forth. But yet, nevertheless, he gave me the money for the year, and I had to put it in a checking account up in Hanover, New Hampshire, and I paid my bills. But I nevertheless had to send him a letter every year. So by the time my brother got to college, my father used to laugh. He said, you know, what he does, he doesn't put down when he goes to the bar and has a drink. He puts that down as,
Recreation, entertainment.
no, he puts it down a nickel here, a nickel there.
Oh, he doesn't say what it is for.
No, Richard would put down gum, 5 cents. He ate a lot of gum. And my father would joke, he'd say, boy, he's getting away with murder, and I never got away with murder. My brother called me up, and he said, if you want to see Mother alive, you should come out again. So I went in December, I think it was. And my brother and I walked into the room, her room, and she said, I know what you're here for. You think I'm gonna die. No, but that's really, I was there. And that was the last time I saw her. And she was terrific.
She was, and she knew who she was all the way to the end. She just had a hard time breathing, really, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'll have to tell you a story about her. One time she was in Chicago visiting us, and she went to the store at the corner of Michigan Avenue and Chestnut. And she went and she was wearing a hat, and she was buying a new hat, so she took the hat off. And she tried on other hats, and she said, forget it, I'll put the hat back on. And the lady came up to her and said, that hat fits you perfectly.
I actually think I remember that. Wasn't it I thought she went to Water Tower Place.
That's
We
right.
went to like Macy's or something.
Yeah.
Or what, it was
Not
Marshall
Macy's.
Fields. Yeah, Marshall Fields.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, she was a really neat lady.
Unbelievable.
Yes, very faithful. Was she happy that you were an altar boy?
Oh, yeah.
Was she in charge of that?
One time I told her I thought I'd become a priest, and she said, you don't want to really think about that.
Why did she say that?
She didn't want me to be a priest.
And maybe if she had, what would have happened?
Well, I wouldn't have been anything. That was a 2-week thought.
How old were you?
Oh, golly. Early 20s.
Really?
Yeah. Well, very late teens.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting. And how you were not an altar boy for 20 years. How long did you, when was,
Well, my mother I did funerals,
oh yeah, Peter's doing one on Monday.
and I got $2 a funeral. And my mother, the reason I did them was my mother would sign the note for school absence.
Oh, yeah. So you did them because you didn't want to go to school?
No, I did them because I got $2. My dad tried to keep me unaware of the fact that I was a French citizen as well as an American citizen.
Oh, right.
And because he thought that that France was an old country and nobody from the United States would be going there.
Okay.
And he wanted to keep me out of the French service, which was fortunate because during World War II they called all the French kids who had been sent over, like my father,
Right.
in the army, the French army, which was a no-brainer.
So how old were you then?
Well, I was too young to
You
go
were
in
still
the
too
army,
young.
but anyhow, but he knew that something was going to happen.
Even after World War II, he was worried.
Well, yeah, and so he died in 1955, and I got sent to France by Gillette, and I found out when I got there
What year were you in France?
1965, I think.
Okay.
I went to the consulate in Boston, and he said, "Oh, was your father, you have a French name, was your father known at the consulate?" I said, "Yes, he was during the war. He was very active in French affairs." And he said, "Well, when were you born?" I said, 1926. And he said, "When did your father become a citizen?" And I said, "Well, 1931. He had to live in the country for 5 years before you."
Okay.
And he came in 1926. And he said, "Well, then you're a Frenchman. It's like, just like going home." So I said, "Holy mackerel." And so now I'm with Gillette, and I'm going over I went over and I came home every 8 weeks
Right.
for a week. I went back. And finally I said to on a trip back to Boston, I said to the consul in Boston, I said, "Well, why can't I get a permission to move?" He said, "We don't want you to leave. We don't want you to." I said, "I'm not trying to leave, I'm trying to get in."
Right.
Well, he said, "Okay." He said, "I'll just sign everything. You can go over. But you have to promise me that you go to the gendarmerie first, which is the federal police." And I went, and they said, "We don't have any notice of your having been in the French army. You've done your military service in France." I said, "No, I haven't." He said, "Well, were you in the American forces?" And I said, "Yeah, I was. I was in the Navy." He said, "Were you in the Atlantic?" I said, "No, I was in the Pacific." And being in the Atlantic would have fulfilled my
Fulfilled, yeah.
French military, but since I was in the Pacific, it didn't. So I was having dinner one Sunday in Paris with my cousin and her husband. And he said, "Well, why don't you call Bernard Partout, who's the prefect of Haute-Savoie where you are, and it'll be like God talking to God." He's
God being you because you're the head of July.
Yeah, and he's like the governor.
God of the government.
And so
Okay.
I called him, and I told him my story, and he said, "I don't know what to do." He said, but he pushed a few buttons, and 3 guys came in. And he said, "Would you mind telling the story over again?" I said, "No, I wouldn't mind at all." So I told the story over. And one gentleman said, "Well, ignorance of the law is no excuse." I said, "It's not ignorance of the law, it's ignorance of the fact."
That you were a French citizen.
I was a French citizen.
Your
He
father
said, "How
never
long
told
have you known?" I said, "About 6 months." He said, so a third man said, "How old are you?" And I said, "About 35. He said, "Do you have any children? Are you married?" I said, "Yes, I have 5 children." He said, "Well, that gives you 10 years, we give you 2 points for every child. That gives you 10 years more, and that makes you 45, effectively, and we stop calling at age 40. I said, "Do you promise?" He said, "I promise."
So you registered.
So I went to the gendarmerie and registered for the French army, and they never called me. I thought it was great. Oh boy, I sent a telegram. My father said, my father was dying of cancer, and they brought George home. On the way home from the hospital, he put him in his arms. My father was so proud. And he said, "You better send a telegram to your uncle in France," which I did. And I announced that we had a new child, a male. His name was George. And
Well, Gabriel George.
Gabriel George Durot, the second. And I got her thing back. "Wonderful, thank you for informing me, blah, 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 blah." And then when we had a daughter, Jennifer,
Yeah.
my father had died, but I sent a cable to my
Uncle.
uncle, and he sent back, "The dream of kings, stop." I didn't know whether to stop having children or to stop
Stop
message.
the message period, right?
And Robbie was in the car one day. Well, I was sitting in the den, and the car's backing out the driveway.
And is this the same house that Maureen lives in now?
Yeah.
Okay, so you're sitting in the den and you saw the
And
car.
I rushed out, and I jumped in the car, and this kid says, "Ow!" I'm sitting on Robert. And if I hadn't been there to put on the brakes, we would have gone out in the street and through the stone wall. From the, geez. Another time, he said, I was gonna play golf at 7:30 in the morning or whatever, 8 o'clock. And he said, "I'll go with you." And so I go to get my shoes, my golf shoes, and there's no lapel, there's no label, there's
What's the lapel?
No, there's no tongue
Oh, okay.
on the shoes. I said, "Gee," I had tongues on them, and I said, "I'll go with you to go find them." So I drove for 3 hours around, and I couldn't get them. And so I got home in time for lunch, and Maureen said to me, "Robert, you go in the house for a minute." And she went in the house with him, and he came out carrying the tongues, sheepish. He had been with me for 4 hours trying to get, I searched for the tongues, and he knew he's the one who took one. But I came home one time and I dropped Jennifer off, and there was a party, I had to step over people going in the house, and
You had to step over people.
they were all over the place.
What were they doing? They're just sleeping.
Well, they were filling the house, they were trying to, more people than Heinz Pickles. And so I got out of there and went to my apartment downtown, and I was very thankful.
Well, of all your children, who is the most like you?
Well, Jennifer, she takes more after me. But all the boys have done well.
Everyone has done very well.
Everybody's done well.
Okay,
Okay,
I'm ready.
all right, time for Slate.
Slide.
All right, it is Marcel Project Take 5.
Anything else you want to share with us?
No. You're very kind. Well,
90 is a big deal.
it is a big deal.
I'm really excited to celebrate with you and the whole family.
I don't think I'll live to 91.
You never know what God has planned for you.
Well, it's just,
Maybe he still wants you to be a priest. You just gotta get rid of her.
I don't think so.
You never know.
Give me a kiss to build a dream on, and my imagination will thrive upon that kiss. Sweetheart, I ask no more than this, a kiss to build a dream on. Give me a kiss before you leave me, and my imagination will feed my hungry heart. Leave me one thing before we part, a kiss to build a dream on. When I'm alone with my fancies, I'll be with you, weaving romances, making believe they're true. Oh, give me your lips for just a moment, and my imagination will make that moment live. Give me what you alone can give, a kiss to build a dream on. with my fancies, I'll be with you, weaving romances, making believe they're true. Oh, give me lips for just a moment, and my imagination will make that moment live. Oh, give me what you alone can give. I'll kiss the pill I dream of.